Welcome back to this growth group series called Cage Match. In this series, we've been talking about how there is a fight going on around us. Maybe not a fight in the sense of throwing kicks and punches, but a fight for our hearts. And one that plays itself out through the ideas that we think are true and therefore allow to guide our lives. You see, our culture often tells us that one thing is true while God tells us another thing. And in this series, we're looking at a few key areas where the ideas of our culture and the ideas of Jesus come into conflict. One of the biggest places that our beliefs come into conflict with secular beliefs of our culture has to do with the exclusivity of Jesus. In other words, with the idea that Jesus claims he is the only way. We live in a pluralistic society where there are many belief systems all around us. So how do we grapple with the question of, do any of these beliefs have the right to say that they are the only one that is right? So let's ask this question. What assumptions do we see in our larger culture? Well, one of the main cultural assumptions is that truth is relative, which basically means that everyone has the right to determine their own version of the truth. It's something that's relative to the person who holds to that idea. You'd see this in action when someone says something like, well, they're just living their own truth. Or when someone tells you that they think all religions can be true because everyone finds truth differently. Or we see this with the idea that truth is something that is socially conditioned, that our beliefs tend to be the product of a particular social and historical setting, and that dependent on where we grew up and with what type of parents and in what type of setting, your understanding of truth will be different. You might hear this idea when someone says, how can you believe Jesus is the only way? After all, if you grew up in Indonesia with Muslim parents and in a Muslim cultural surrounding, you'd think Islam is the only way. What gives you the right to say that your way is right and theirs isn't? The assumption is that because our beliefs are shaped by our context, there's no way that a 21st century Christian can claim to be any more right than a 3rd century pagan could. They're both just products of their environment. And if you don't roll in any circles where they want to talk about the relativity of truth, maybe you've heard this idea come out when someone said something like, well, you just got to live your own truth. The short of it is that for many in our surrounding culture, the assumption is that no one really has the right to claim that their way is the only way. Jesus, on the other hand, presents a very different view. Probably the most famous statement on this is from John 14, where Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Notice the directness of the statement here. Jesus says, I am the way, meaning he alone provides the access to God that saves us. And he is the truth, meaning that he not only teaches what is true, but is the absolute embodiment of truth. And he is the life, meaning that he has the way to true life. In fact, he says he is the way, not a way, the truth, not a truth, the life, not an option of many different lives. It is an exclusive statement. Jesus says, no one comes to the Father except through me. He's making a claim that flies in the face of what our culture teaches. That he is not one amongst equal options, and he is not just for people who are raised in a setting that shapes them to be Christian. No, he is the only way to the true and lasting life that God created you for. This is a bold statement. So, how do we evaluate between these two competing perspectives? Well, the first thing we need to recognize is that it's pretty much impossible to not make an exclusive truth claim when having this conversation. To say that we shouldn't make exclusive truth claims regarding religion because all of those claims are conditioned by our place in culture and history, or to say that every religion is equally true, these kinds of claims are in themselves exclusive truth claims, because by saying that every religion is true or you can't claim one is truer than the other, what you're doing is making a claim that by its very nature excludes those who would say that Jesus is the only way. Tim Keller says it this way. He says, the reality is that we all make exclusive truth claims of some sort. While it can be very hard to weigh them responsibly, we have no alternative but to try. His point is that by taking the stance that no one should claim their view is absolutely right, it's not only similar to what they're speaking against, but it's really just a cop-out for not being willing to truly evaluate the options presented to them. So the issue can't be whether or not it's okay to claim that your view is right or the only way, because even claiming that all religions are equally true is going to exclude those who think one religion is more right than another. The bigger question is, how do we evaluate Jesus' claim to be the only way? Now, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but for the sake of this session, it just comes down to whether Jesus' life, death, and resurrection were real or not. If Jesus really lived and taught and healed, and if Jesus really died on the cross, and if Jesus really came back from the dead to show us that everything he claimed about himself was real, then it's very hard to argue with the exclusive claims of Jesus, that he is the only way. I hope you have a good time discussing this in your group. It's a hard topic, but fruitful, and so enjoy, and we'll see you next week.